Nerf Pig. No doubt every single one of you watching this video has heard of this meme before. Whether it be commented under every single Dead by Daylight patch note tweet, in most forum posts regarding killer balance, or even your favourite YouTubers and streamers referencing it.
Here we go. They need to nerf the pig even more. I almost hit her with that.
So let me explain to you exactly how the pig became the laughingstock of the DBD community. All the way back on January the 23rd, 2018, the pig released alongside Detective Tapp in the Saw chapter, filling the role of being a stealth killer with a new and unique gameplay loop for both her and the survivors, the reverse bear traps. Inspired by the movies, the pig could place these traps on downed survivors' heads. After a generator was completed, the traps would activate, starting a countdown. When time's up, the trap detonates, annihilating the survivor's bottom jaw and instantly killing them. Survivors would have to search through jigsaw boxes to find their assigned key and remove their box. Survivors also couldn't escape the match while trapped. If they attempted to, their traps would detonate, turning what would have been an escape into an instant death. These bear traps made matches against the pig far different to every other killer, mainly due to the secondary objectives survivors would have to tend to other than generators, thus granting the pig the secondary role of being the first killer with gen slowdown as part of their kit, since every second spent removing the reverse bear trap is a second spent not repairing gens. Since survivors couldn't escape while trapped, the pig earned a reputation as being the late game killer, since she could save her traps for late game and have all survivors stuck in the match even when the gens were done. Aside from an initial splash where survivors first had to adjust to her new mechanics, the pig released to astounding mediocrity. While better than the low tier killers at the time like Wraith and Trapper, she certainly couldn't keep up with the big boys like Nurse and Hillbilly. To put it as simply as possible, she wasn't a problem, and the majority of the community agreed with that. With the Nurse still reigning supreme with her old blink timers, old add-ons, and seemingly next to no nerfs coming in, when you think of which killers needed to be nerfed, the pig definitely wasn't on that list. As she was still fresh out of launch, she had a few bugs that first needed to be addressed, both in her favour and against her. So over the course of 2018, the pig's changes only consisted of bug fixes. The first bug fix was fixing an issue that allowed the pig to get an automatic kill when dropping a survivor that's trapped at the exit gate. This was a pretty hefty oversight, and cheeky pig players absolutely used this to get some cheeky insta-kills late game. The next two bug fixes were in her favour, where they fixed a bug that made it so the pig couldn't hit survivors on stairs with her dash attack, and another bug that made it so her red stain didn't disappear when crouched. So far, so good. These are fairly typical bug fixes that we'd expect, and nothing was out of the ordinary. Pig was a cool late game stealth killer who wasn't too strong, but wasn't terrible either. Then 2019 happened. I don't know if behaviour had a falling out with the Saw license holders, but it seems this was the year that the devs suddenly decided that they hated the pig. Wasting no time whatsoever, straight off the bat in January of 2019, patch 2.5.0 released, hitting the pig with one of the biggest nerfs you would ever see even to this day. Her terror radius was nerfed, being increased from 24 meters to 32 meters. What was the reason for this, you may ask? Was her stealth aspect deemed too frustrating or too strong? No, the devs stated that they had a change in game design philosophy and wanted to standardize killer terror radiuses based on movement speed, meaning that normal speed killers like Wraith, Trapper, Pig, etc. would have a 32 meter terror radius, whereas slow killers like Hag would receive a 24 meter radius. Make sure to remember this statement for later. They wanted to standardize terror radiuses based on movement speed. Now, there were some buffs they gave her to even out this nerf, and those were that she could now crouch 0.7 seconds faster, and her terror radius would fade away faster when crouched. Since they buffed her base crouching speed, they also nerfed her most popular add-on, Combat Straps, since it also sped up her crouch speed. They reduced its value by 70%. While the faster base crouching speed was definitely a welcome addition, the terror radius nerf heavily outweighed these buffs. The reason this was such a big nerf for her was because it effectively gutted her stealth aspect. Having a smaller terror radius of 24 meters allowed her to get much closer to a survivor before having to crouch if she wanted to remain stealthy. When crouched, the pig's movement speed is reduced significantly, so pig players ideally don't want to be crouched for too long or else it would waste too much time. By increasing her terror radius to 32 meters, survivors would be able to hear the pig from much further away, meaning she would have to start crouching much earlier on if she wanted to sneak up on them, therefore spending even more time with reduced movement speed and ending up losing much more pressure. However, even on day one of the previously mentioned standardization, their plan was already thrown out the window, as Michael Myers still got to keep his 16-meter terror radius despite having the same movement speed as the pig. Of course, I'm not saying that they should have nerfed Myers, but all this already proved that the standardization was much more of a direct nerf to the pig than a real shift in design philosophy. Regardless of how big of a nerf this was, it had the community puzzled because why nerf a killer that wasn't even that good anyway? It seemed so out of the blue. These changes seriously hurt the pig's stealth aspect and even caused some dedicated pig players to give up on her. While she still wasn't terrible as her reverse bear trap still helped her with gen slowdown, she was now in a worse situation than she needed to be. Things needed to change. So, a few months later, the PTB for patch 2.7.0 hits, bringing a new series of changes to the pig. Nerf: reverse bear traps no longer activate during endgame collapse. Nerf: reverse bear traps will no longer kill escaping survivors unless they were activated by a gen. Nerf: reverse bear trap timers will pause when in the pig's terror radius. The community was absolutely gobsmacked. After this patch, the pig was no longer a late game killer. Thankfully, the nerf that paused trap timers while in her terror radius never made it into the live game. They didn't want to nerf her too much after all. In the first half of 2019, behavior had hit a mid-tier killer with 3 absolutely huge nerfs, and things were starting to add up now. Killers were playing pig less and less, and it goes without saying that 3 huge nerfs didn't exactly increase her kill rate. Her stealth had taken a hit, and now her late game pressure had taken a hit. At least her dash wasn't nerfed. 2 months later, on the 23rd of July 2019, patch 3.1.0 was released. What did they have in store for her now? Nerf: the pig's dash no longer procs save the best for last. Nerf: the pig's dash no longer procs sloppy butcher. Nerf: the pig's dash is no longer affected by exposure effects. At the time, these changes were much bigger than they may seem now because many pig players were using Save the Best for Last to quickly chain a basic attack after injuring a survivor with the dash for a quick down, and Sloppy Butcher was extremely popular, so denying pig players value from these 2 popular perks was absolutely unwarranted. The biggest hit was that it no longer procced exposure effects, as back then exposure perks were more popular than they are now, and Make Your Choice saw somewhat frequent use. So this series of changes was actually another huge blow. At this point, the whole community had picked up on the constant, unrelenting nerf train that behavior had unleashed onto poor Amanda. In the span of mere months, they had nerfed her stealth, nerfed her traps, and nerfed her dash. They had genuinely, unironically nerfed every single aspect of her kit in a hefty way. Once again, she was never even that good to begin with, which is what makes these nerfs so much worse as they were completely unnecessary. Meanwhile, Nurse was still running rampant with her old add-ons and reduced cooldown, yet for some reason, Pig was getting nerfed like there was no tomorrow. After this patch, the Pig's usage dropped even further. Since everybody had caught onto the constant Pig nerfs, the community was now watching the Pig with content, ready to pick up on any future nerfs headed her way. Nerf Pig had become a fully fledged community-wide meme, and from here on out, anything that negatively affected the Pig would be picked up on, whether it be a bug fix or a teeny tiny nerf with next to no real impact. 2 months later, in patch 3.2.1 in September of 2019, the Pig got a bug fix, reducing her movement speed when carrying survivors from 96.25% to 92%. While her carry speed was always supposed to be 92% just like other killers, the community was quick to jump on yet another Pig nerf joining the extensive list. A month later, the undetectable status effect was added into the game to unify stealth mechanics, so all stealth killers received this instead of their old stealth mechanics. However, the undetectable status effect made the killer's red stain fade out slower than how the Pig stain used to fade out when crouching. So yep, another Pig nerf. 2 months after that, in December, still 2019 by the way, Unnerving Presence was tweaked so that it would no longer affect the skill checks for jigsaw boxes. Yet another nerf for the pig. At this point, the meme was in full force. Nobody ever really used Unnerving Presence on the pig, so it hardly made an impact. But once again, why is the pig still having to deal with more and more things working against her? All of those nerfs, the big, the small, the bug fixes, were just in the year 2019. And you thought that was it, didn't you? While 2020 was a quiet year for the pig, towards the end of 2021, the devs changed most of the pig's add-ons. Some were changed to get new effects entirely, and some were flat out buffed. But it wouldn't be a real patch if they didn't nerf the pig. Crate of Gears was nerfed to decrease jigsaw box search penalty to 33% instead of its old value of 43%. Tampered Timer was nerfed to decrease trap timer reduction by 20 seconds instead of its previous 30 seconds. Last Will was changed to no longer spawn one additional jigsaw box and instead increase the dash movement speed by 6%, while also paired with the massive downside of increasing the charge time by 66%. Last Will used to be a key part of the Chronos pig build, which was one of the most effective builds on her. Losing that to a new effect with significant downsides was unwelcome to say the least. Whether the add-on overhaul was an overall buff or an overall nerf doesn't matter to the meme. The meme was Nerf Pig, and in at least one way, they did indeed nerf Pig. A few months later, early in 2022, they actually buffed two of the pig's add-ons by reducing the downsides attached to them. Not removing the downsides, just making them slightly less over the top. While that is nice, why the hell do the pig's add-ons have downsides to them? They're add-ons, not remove-froms. 2 months later, in March of 2022, the pig gets her next nerf, the release of Sadako. Remember that quote I told you earlier on in the video? The pig's heartbeat nerf wasn't a nerf to her, it was a change in design philosophy. Sadako was confirmation that there was no change in design philosophy, and that it was in fact a targeted nerf towards the pig. Sadako had the same movement speed as the pig. Sadako was also a stealth killer, her terror radius 24 meters. The exact thing that the pig had taken away from her due to her movement speed, Sadako got to keep, despite having the same movement speed as the pig. Although there were no direct changes to the pig in this patch, due to this technicality, it was yet another pig nerf moment. Next up was patch 6.0.0 in June of 2022, when the pig got some direct changes to her bear traps. Nerf added one more jigsaw box totaling to 5, but made it so that survivors would always get their trap off if they searched 4 boxes. They could still potentially get it off earlier than 4, but 4 searches was the absolute maximum. This direct nerf was targeted towards pig players who would body block the last jigsaw box, guaranteeing a kill on a trapped survivor if their key wasn't in the other boxes. Once again, the meme isn't about how effective the nerfs were or if they were justified, just that the pig was receiving more nerfs. On the flip side, this patch also buffed her so that survivors could never get their trap off from the first jigsaw box. And just for one final blow, August 2022, Wesker was released. Yet another killer who didn't follow the standardization, as he had a terror radius of 40 meters. While the pig has certainly had some buffs over the years, and some of the nerfs were either tiny, bug fixes, or technicalities, the Nerf Pig meme lives on purely because of the sheer number of nerfs this poor girl has had, despite the fact she was never that good to begin with. Apart from 2019. I don't know what on earth happened in behaviour that year, but pretty much every change from 2019 was absolutely bonkers and hurt her far more than was reasonable. I dare you to go back through this video and count every single nerf she's had. And the best part is, the video didn't even cover every nerf. For example, some were shadow nerfs not mentioned in patch notes. Thank you for watching. Catch me live on twitch.tv/Ardetha Monday to Thursday. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one.